As Sabrina tries to pop up that complaint here, we have Lester Carlson on line one. We got Senator Joseph Augustine, finance chair, Steve Guerrero, the OFB director, and I think we're also going to squeeze in Superintendent John Fernandez. It's pretty crazy. You want to bring on Lester?
Sure.
Let's go ahead and bring on Lester Carlson, who's the director of the Bureau of Budget and Management Research. Lester, good morning. Lester's joining us on the telephone.
Yeah, Lester's joining on the telephone because the echoes and the lack of bandwidth are not conducive to great communication. And so you may think I don't know how to use Zoom. I actually do know how to use Zoom, but I think for the listening audience, this medium is a lot better because I think my words and the clarity of which it is that I'm going to be expressing any responses to questions from you shouldn't have be hampered by bandwidth issues. So my memory serves me right too, Clarence.
Right on. Yeah, well, we're just glad to have you here, Lester. I don't care if it's smoke signal or telephone or...
You made me chuckle when you said it earlier this morning that I'm going to join, but I'm not going to join by Zoom because I don't know how.
Well, Sabrina said it's because you're probably in your underwear. So.
What?
Lester, good morning.
I say that.
I'm just kidding, man. So where are we? We'll get right into it. We had Ed Byrne on yesterday, and he kind of said $30 million shortfall, and of course that pricked up everyone's ears.
I'm not really sure what Mr. Byrne said yesterday, but I hope that you and Sabrina, and good morning, Sabrina.
Good morning.
Have the latest consolidated revenue and expense report for the period up to December 31st. If you do, on page 1, there's a truly unfair comparison between revenues in the first quarter of last fiscal year and revenues in the current fiscal year. And the disparity there is $32.5 million. But remember, last fiscal year was pre-COVID, and we were rocking and rolling with tourism arrivals, and everybody wanted to open up a store here, and everybody was looking at expansion. So our CRER does do a fiscal year comparative on page 1, and you will see a $32 million drop if you compare the two quarters. But again, it's an unfair comparison. What I always tell people to do is please go to page 3. Page 3 is where we have a more appropriate comparative where once the budget is passed, we do a statistical allocation of revenues throughout the 12 months. And so when we look at revenues, we see whether or not statistically they have achieved the collection rate that we assumed given the overall revenues adopted for any particular revenue category. So for example, on page 3, individual, we looked at the adopted revenue for the cumulative period, and that was 11 million. We ended up receiving 10 million and change, so we were $393,000 short based upon our tracking model for revenues. And then, it goes on throughout the rest of page 3. The cumulative and more appropriate takeaway from this report is at the bottom of page 3, where we do our tracking based upon, again, the assumption that the rest of the months will bear out. And if they do, the adopted general fund level for fiscal year 2021 is $774 million and change. Our revenue tracking at this point in time is $763 million and change. Therefore, we are predicting right now that we'll be short, all things being equal, for the rest of the fiscal year by a little bit over $11 million. Now, I heard the speaker say that she's going to be interested to hear what I had to say about the ability to recoup or make up these revenues. And these revenues are based on very conservative numbers passed by the legislature. And we do have, I'm the eternal optimist, we do have businesses that are beginning to open, restaurants that are allowed to have more of a capacity. I will be the first one to tell you that there are some other sectors in the retail/entertainment after 5 o'clock hours, establishments that are very great contributors to our economy, but they're also perceived as being areas in which our guards can be let down, and therefore
I'm sorry, what are we talking about?
we're talking about bars.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there's a significant amount of people who work in that industry.
Mm-hmm.
And the margins for the businesses are very good. And so, the ability to have discretionary spending and relaxation, go hand in hand simply doesn't seem to be appropriate at this time. When we do get to a point to where that is something that can be, allowed, and all the proper safeguards are in place, and people are comfortable with it, then you're going to see, additional discretionary spending. I watched Nestor's interview with Dr. Jones, Gary Hiles, and the other gentleman from the university, and Dr. Jones was saying something that I've also heard, that people are saving money and not spending the money that they were getting from these relief programs, and that's a very, very welcome turn in behavior, because people understand this is going to go on for a little bit longer. So I'm glad that there are deposit accounts that are being opened up, and that people are being a little bit more cautious with their spending, particularly with the understanding that some of these federal programs do have sunset dates attached to them. So I actually believe that with the reopening of school, I know that the attendance levels are not very high at this moment. There's still some hesitation about that, but there's economic activity that is associated with the opening up of school. There's more money spent for food. There's more money spent for fuel. There's more money spent for school supplies and clothes and things of that nature associated with the opening of a school. Now, I think that incrementally, some of the things that occurred in the first quarter that the pandemic, by all rights, prohibited, and rightly so, from occurring are what has resulted in the revenue levels that the government has seen to date. With the vaccinations, I think, and people's continued, adherence to the mask, the social distancing, and washing your hands, I think that's something that's going to have to be thoroughly ingrained in our behavior. And it's difficult for us because the first thing that we always do when we see each other is want to hug each other, kiss each other on the cheek, stuff like that. And, there's no kissing allowed anymore. So I don't know if we're ever going to get back to that, but I do believe that from an economic standpoint, we're inching our way back to a place where some of these revenue disparities from adopted levels, I think, are going to be made up. And the speaker had a point about maybe having to go in and revisit the budget. There's a mechanism that's already established in law, and we utilized that in 2018 during the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, where we went in and cut government spending by $30 million, and we raised the BPT from 4% to 5%. Now, I also heard the speaker say how if there are any cuts that need to be made, let's not, let's not push the panic button and go to the heartstrings of the community and saying that the elderly and foster kids are the first programs to go. I agree 100% with the speaker. But I also believe that she also said that this is the time for the government to step up. And I think she's absolutely correct. So dropping the BPT from 5 to 4 is not stepping up. That is taking $60 million out of government operations at a time when we're in the midst of a pandemic, and that's foolish. You heard me, foolish.
Okay.
Les, just a couple questions here. Will there be a hiring freeze, and are you guys at all planning on sending out any furlough notices? And if so, or if not, when and why?
No furlough notices, and the hiring is, Chris and Sabrina, we have a lot of federal money, and one of my biggest efforts here is to get different agencies who have programs with federal funds to spend the money. It doesn't help us when we have resources that are not put in place. Anything, we've done this numerous occasions where there's unless it's a federal funded position or a teacher or a nurse or a social worker, and there's now allowances for like retired peace officers to come back in. Those types of vitally needed services we will continue to provide. The attrition rate at the fire department, I see resignations on a weekly basis. They need to get a cycle. They need new blood in there. I know Sabrina's husband works at the fire department because he was nice enough to come and disinfect our office. But at the same time, he's probably in the mid-range of, the employee base at the fire department. Certainly not an elder one, but certainly not a younger one either. So we have critical needs that the speaker did refer to, and I agree with her. But we can't take retroactively the BPT and cut it when we need to provide more services to the people of Guam. And I don't think, Chris and Sabrina, that we're at a time or a period, particularly since President Biden, who has promoted very strongly additional aid to states and territories. Let's give President Biden's administration a chance to get some congressional action on a second or a third relief package. But for the states and territories, it's the second relief package because there was a lot of money that went into vaccinations and testing and stuff in the second stimulus package, but nothing for the states and territories. So for us to be able to do the program in Salapi, for us to do the myriad of things that we did for businesses like rent relief and things of that nature, which we used the CARES Act money that the governor was given to do, we don't have that yet. And if we are fortunate enough to get it, we're hopeful that it comes sooner rather than later. It'll help to mitigate a lot of what it is that we're in, and the world is experiencing at this point.
So just for clarification, when Mr. Burns said he thinks it might be a $30 million shortfall for the current fiscal year, based on your CRE whatever report, it's It's actually 11.2. But you're kind of optimistic and almost confident that you guys will be able to make that up.
Yes, and again, for the reasons I stated, there's been some relaxation of the restrictions. There are more opportunities for economic activity. I'm sure we'll straighten out this PUA thing, and it will have the positive effect and be as far-reaching as it should be. I know Dave De La Sola is working very hard every day, making phone calls and trying to get the glitch addressed so that people don't have to worry about repayments and the eligibility. So Yes, I am confident.
Okay.
And
So
if
that's
if we do have to cut, it's not like I haven't done it before. It was the most painful period in my professional life, and I don't want to ever have to do that again. So I'm just hoping that people will adhere to the requirements of social distancing, the mask, and washing your hands, so that we can collectively, as a community, get out of this and restore some of the activities that will help government collections, which then in turn help government services.
Are we losing out on any federal grants because the government of Guam isn't able to meet and match funding requirements?
No. Like with the CHIP program at Public Health, Child Health Insurance Program, we've got a 85-15 match, so we only have to put in 15% currently. The Medicaid match of 83-17, we got an increase of 6-point-something%, so it's now like 89-11. So because of the pandemic, the match requirements for us have dropped, and therefore the local resources necessary to fully maximize the amounts available from these two federal sources, which are very important for healthcare here on Guam, have been, they've been a godsend, because we've had to use less local resources to maximize the ability to get the Medicaid and the CHIP programs. And there's also been infusions of money for the SNAP program. There's been infusions of money for other programs related to the pandemic. And there's also funding for the child care facilities. And I know that I've signed off on about 15 contracts for child care providers to avail themselves of the funding that has been made available, so that people can get back to work and have a safe and licensed facility to be able to place their children with federal assistance to help them out.
What about money to pay for this RISE Act?
Yeah.
Is there money for that?
RISE. What was RISE again? I forget.
That was, I think,
Kind of another
Senator
stimulus, a local
Regine's-
stimulus.
Is it $800 or something?
What? Okay, I'm drawing a blank right now. I know that the program that we're talking about was very similar to the program in Salapi that we paid on.
Mm-hmm.
And I think my fiscal note actually said that. And just like the Ajuda y Mangafa program from Senator Shelton, what we said was that there wasn't any general fund money to pay for this. So there were provisions that said that you can't use any general fund money unless you've
Use the CARES
used
money.
the CARES Act fund. And we went ahead and we took care of the Ajuda Mangafa, and I believe the Department of Revenue and Taxation has already closed the application period and paid out, I want to say, about almost $700,000 in that program for the gap group that was left out in the stimulus. So we've been successful in bridging that gap, thanks to the legislation that Senator Shelton put in. And I think the RISE Act, we're out of federal funds, the CARES Act. I told everybody we'd spend it all, and the congressional action recently basically allowed for expenditures to and use of the funds to go on up until December of this year.
So no rise.
No, we're falling. That's it. You can't rise.
No
There's no
rise.
money.
Well, you know what, Chris? I actually feel that we've hit the bottom, and it's only upwards from now. So, again, I'm being the eternal optimist, and I would really like to be able to believe that, if a second round of stimulus came in, and we were able to take care of, what is public law, right? Then, we can prioritize that because we have policy to guide us.
I hear you though, but keeping the faith and keeping food on the table, I mean, it's two different things. So what the budget is due to the legislature by this Sunday?
Yeah.
What sort of, go ahead.
But
No, I was going to say, what kind of budget are we looking at?
yeah, and will you guys be issuing any budget adjustments to agencies?
It is due on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
I am trying to get it out by Friday. As you might expect, this is going to be not 80-20 ground beef. It's probably going to be like 93-7. It's going to be leaner. It just has to be.
Not $1 billion budget?
I mean, $1 billion is when you take everything in total, Sabrina, including federal funds. So, but if you look at the CRER and the accompanying document, the special fund report, every special fund from the Guam Highway Fund, Solid Waste, the Territorial Education Facilities Fund, which is the property tax, right? The Tourist Attraction Fund, Healthy Future Fund, and Customs and Quarantines Inspection Services Fund, they're all tracking below adopted levels currently. So it doesn't take a rocket scientist to be able to say, well, you can't give us, a budget that's based upon the levels of the existing fiscal year when we're not hitting the numbers.
Yeah, but also it doesn't take a rocket scientist to think that maybe instead of optimism, we should have a little more realism.
The realism will be evidenced in the budget, Chris.
Bree, you good? Anything?
Are we going to see any sort of cuts in the proposed fiscal year 2022 budget?
From 2021?
In the proposed 2022 budget.
Yeah. So, in other words, you're saying, is the governor going to propose that spending in total is going to be reduced in the next fiscal year?
Sure, yeah.
I mean, like I said, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to be able to say you cannot ask for the same funding level when you're not even achieving it through the first quarter. Now, be reminded, though, she's required by law to submit this by January 31st. The budget process begins in April and May, where the budget committee begins calling in agencies and listening to their department by department needs, and then in June, July they start actually the budget session. So, we've got 6-7 months of my optimism to be realized before they actually have to act on something.
Let's bring on. We're going to bring on Finance Chair Senator Joseph Augustine, and I think he's going to be with the OFB Director Steve Guerrero. I mean, we're breaking bread on the budget. Might as well fold in the legislative arm of things. Stand by for a sec. We're getting them on the Zoom.
Oh, Zoom, huh? Whoa.
Ooh, high tech. Ooh, wow. Yeah, Senator San Augustine, let's go. And guys, we lost Superintendent John Fernandez. Got his standing Tuesday, but because of this budget stuff and having to get Senator Joe on as well, we're going to try and get Superintendent John Fernandez tomorrow. We'll try our best. If not, we'll catch up with him next week. Senator San Augustine, Steve Guerrero, the OFB chair. We're on with Lester Carlson via telephone. And I know I hope you've been listening to the interview. I guess, first of all, Senator, any comments on Lester Carlson's optimism? Can you hear?
Yeah, I can hear, but I can barely hear you on our side. We're trying to raise up the volume on our side.
Okay. So I guess we'll just start there. Did you have any comments on Lester Carlson's optimism?
Well, you know what? And that's positive, and that's pretty good that they have some optimism. We're just concerned about what do they plan on doing. Okay, because
because what? We can hear you just fine,
Yeah.
Senator San Agustin.
They sound good.
But not as good as me. Getting that telephone. You Zoomers, you guys crack me up.
You baby Zoomers.
No, I mean, seriously, this kind of stuff happens all the time. It's not conducive to a very interactive and flowing conversation. So I hope I've been vindicated, Mr. Barnett.
Actually, I think we've had some very good discussions via Zoom.
Yeah. I miss you on the Zoom, man. You got a nice
Yeah.
painting in your office. You got that nice painting in there, you know. You're a good looking guy, Les. Don't be shy.
Oh, I'm shy.
Senator, are you able to hear us?
Yes, I'm able to hear you now.
All right.
Okay,
there
fine.
you
So go ahead, let her rip.
But Chris and Sabrina, there seems to be a delay in hearing what you're saying and what I'm responding to.
Well, just respond to everything Lester just said and how optimistic he is that, well, things are going to be great.
Not great.
No.
Not great. I never say great. Come on now. Let's go.
Go ahead, Senator. Go ahead, Senator.
It's not
Okay,
working.
well, I'm trying to hear exactly what he said. What he just said. What did he just say?
We're looking at an $11 million, not a $30 million shortfall for the current fiscal year, but he's optimistic we'll be able to make up that difference.
Yes, and you know what? Like I said, I mentioned earlier, Sabrina and Chris, is that we're hoping that they do make it up.
So that's
Yeah, we all do.
That's our plan this year. We're going to sit back and hope.
No. Well, no, that's not the plan, Chris. Number one, the administration has to take the appropriate action. If they find out that, they do have the authority to do the reserve, put that, like 15% reserve from every agency. If they don't get the money, then at least that money won't ever be released because there's no money there.
I've done that.
See, and because they're doing that, then and that's what we're saying, Chris, is that, the legislature has taken already the step. We did the appropriation. Now we're just waiting to see how things trend. What should concern us in the legislature and in the government of Guam is these bills that have been introduced by our colleagues. The 5 to 4%, GRT, the million or more, the moratorium on the million or more, and the Dave Santos enhancement from 250 to 500. That's what we got to watch out for as they ask for all these decreases. They have to anticipate that when everything drops and there's revenue not coming in, you can't expect the government to continue to provide the services that the people want and demand.
We are on the same page there, Primo. The very, very same page. We cannot.
Thank you, Lester.
This is not the time to drop the BPT. And the word I used, Primo, was foolish. Sorry to be blunt, but that's the word I used.
Okay, so
Well,
then, what's the alternative? What's your plan? What's your suggestions to help our economy?
What would be our plan to help the economy? Well, number one, there's one bill that's already in the works. That's the minimum wage. Oh, yeah.
Go on, Senator. The minimum wage bill, yes?
Okay, the minimum wage bill, the delay, I can understand where they're coming from. I've got reports from the economists up at the University of Guam that, if you really take a look at it and look at the economist report, I'd have to hesitate to support that bill. But at the same token, I've got to consider the businesses that may close because of that minimum wage increase. And if we have to delay it by 1 year to keep the business moving so we can keep the economy going, then so be it. Then I'll probably vote for it on that basis, but not necessarily in support of it totally.
So you're saying the bone that you're going to throw the business community is a minimum wage delay?
Well, right now, that's one. That's one area. And then, I reached out to the business and said, where else can we help you? Because we have to understand that, number one, we got a new president. He's ready to push out a lot of federal money out, and the clock is ticking. You have to remember that BBMR, I know Primo Lester is ready to give us their budget. We're going to have to sit down, tweak it, and see where we're going to go in 2022. But at the same token, we'll be working very close with BBMR and DOA and saying, where are you going? Are you going to seriously consider maybe some sense of a realignment or resizing or right sizing or whatever words you want to use for the government of Guam, so that we can try to get the biggest bang for the dollar we have and not expect to have more or anticipate to spend as much as we can and not provide everything we need.
Right. So we're going to see like a reorganization, consolidation of government agencies.
Well, Sabrina, one of the things we have to anticipate, okay, is that if, unless you agree with me, if there's a 3% shortfall, but it has to be, if I'm correct, within 3 months, a quarter, then the Department of Revenue and Tax, DOA, and BBMR will sit down and start preparing a realignment, right sizing of the government of Guam. Maybe they can seriously consider consolidating certain agencies and take a look at how we can get through this pandemic and this financial crisis.
So we're not going to start coming up with plans to save money until later on.
Yeah.
Well, the reason why I'm saying that, Chris, it's not about not trying to save money. Right now, with the reserve that they've imposed already, so let's hypothetically say, if we say 15%, I don't know if Lester can confirm it, it could equate to about maybe $30-some million in holding back in reserve.
That's about right.
So if you look at that, and as Mr. Byrne had brought up, I guess, with KM, that could be a shortfall of 30 million. If they reserve the 35 million, the agencies are already reacting by not spending that money. But when they don't, because they won't have it, or they can't even plan to use it. The only one I feel for more is DOE, because when you reserve 15% from DOE, that's a major cut on DOE, because they got the lion's share of.
Okay, Primo, if I may, and thank you for.
Yes, please.
Yeah, thank you, Primo, for mentioning the Appropriation Reserve Report. I did transmit this report to the legislature January 22nd, and the total amount that we currently had in reserves, as Senator San Agustin mentioned, throughout the entirety of the government of Guam, bearing in mind there are some agencies that I am prohibited from putting monies into reserve by statute, but the agencies that I could put the 15% reserve to ensure that it's kind of like an allowance, making sure that you don't spend everything up front, and that there's money that is placed in reserve to ensure that there's funds throughout the entirety of the fiscal year. The amount that was reported to the speaker was $55,422,543. So we do have that money. It is unavailable for use unless I get a request, and only on its merit will I release a portion of that. And it is, as Senator San Agustin said, it's one of my most powerful budgeting tools. And that is in place, and that is the amount that is, as of December 31st, in reserve to ensure that if we have to do a realignment, we didn't spend that money, and that money remains available to reprogram or repurpose as necessary. And, nobody wants to think about a fiscal realignment plan. Nobody wants to be able to cut at a time where, if government salaries are adversely affected, well, that is the worst thing that can happen, because everybody else, including people who advertise on your station, won't have the benefit of the discretionary spending from the government and federal employees combined to be able to keep this economy going. So, yes, I'm optimistic because I think we hit the rock bottom. We have the vaccine. I believe that some additional restrictions being lifted are going to promote additional economic activity. We'll get the PUA thing squared away. Biden's administration will provide some relief, and we will come out of this stronger than when we got into it. And I don't feel that there's anything that I've seen that is going to take my position and turn it upside down.
So you're saying, we're going to be okay. Federal money's going to kick in. The pool is going to be settled. The Democrat Biden administration, they're going to do good by us. So everybody just chill out. We're going to be all right.
Actually, work harder because we need to like, okay, why aren't
No, I mean chill out. People concerned, not people working.
We just need to be pushing for things that we have put on the back burner for too long, like self-sustainability for agriculture.
Mm-hmm.
We need to really, really seriously look into our aquaculture potential. We need to look into telecommunication hub centers, all the things that we've talked about for years. With all the cable landing, as a matter of fact, I saw a bill, if I'm not mistaken, that authorizes a lease for a cable landing. So, I mean, cable landings are the networks, the arteries of IT worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
We should be getting, as the speaker mentioned when you guys were talking to her about CLTC land leases, we should be getting the best value. Mm-hmm. There are things that we can do and we should do better. Mm-hmm. And now's the time to make sure that we do them better.
Are those long-term type of
they are. We can't do those things better today. I mean, we've got to do something today.
Well, you know what, Chris and Sabrina, I did bring up with the governor that on the public health issue, I've expressed to her that I would support fully if she would just open up all the businesses, allow them all to open, get public health out there to inspect them all. If they're not in compliance, then close them down. But allow everybody to open up, because that's what the businesses are crying about. We can't open. We're not allowed to open. Open them all up. And then inspect them, and if they're not in compliance with the public health requirements, shut them down, take away their license, and move on. And I think the message will be out there to all the businesses that want to open up, be in compliance, and it'll start to work. But if some of them are just going to open up and just take it as a nonchalant that, well, I don't have to put my mask on, I don't have to wipe my hands, I don't need to wash my hands, I don't have to social distance, and well, then no. It's about, keeping people alive, keeping us safe, and I think we've all done a great job in that aspect. But a lot of the businesses are asking, can we open? Can we open? That's the only thing they're asking. And they can take the risk from there.
Can't you tell we're blood relatives?
But what's the only thing really that's not open, it seems, are the bars.
Yeah.
No.
What else is
on the dining restrictions are still there, and it's better than it was, but it's still. I mean, if you want to go and adhere to the restrictions, as Senator San Agustin said, where it's like, I don't know, 6 or 10 to a table, but you're going to go after mass, and it's like, oh, there's 15 of us. Well, they're only at 50% occupancy. Oh man, never mind. Let's go to the store. We'll barbecue. I mean, but so that money that you would have ordinarily have spent for a nice after mass brunch didn't get really into that sector of the economy because of the restrictions.
So, right, you're saying just removing all the restrictions. Let's just.
No, that was Senator San Agustin. I just said yes. That's my blood right there. So we think like.
No, I'm not saying remove the restriction, but we need to tone it down. You can be restricted from operating, being in compliance with public health requirements. In other words, instead of 50%, make it 100%. Open them up. Make sure they're social distancing, they're sanitizing their hands, they're wearing a mask, and move on.
Yeah, and I think Senator, you mean 100% of the capacity, which takes into account the social distancing. So again, like say for example, Kings, you could open up a greater capacity as long as the designated booths and tables meet that 6 feet distance requirement between
That's
partners.
correct. That's
Yes.
correct.
So
Herman.
it wouldn't be technically 100% of the fire department code, but it would be 100% given the social distancing restrictions, which is greater now than, which would be greater than what is allowed now.
Yeah, obviously, right, Senator?
Obviously.
What about revenues from tourism?
We can do everything to make Guam, guys, the weather, it was raining this morning, but the last, 3 weeks have been drop dead gorgeous. The sun's sunny, breezy, but we need to get our closet clean before we can open our doors for people to come in, and all the precautions necessary for inbound tourists have to be put in place, and everybody has to be comfortable that what we do doesn't set us back. But I until we're vaccinated, until we're comfortable that we can allow for meaningful tourism, that doesn't mean they're going to come. Our primary source markets are having a second, third wave. So we just need to be ready. Remember the story about the brides waiting for the groom to come over, and then the younger ones ran out of oil, but the older ones made sure they had some oil so that when the guy came, he could pick his wife. That's what we got to do. We got to be ready. Don't burn your oil.
All right. Look forward to seeing the plan when it's turned in. What is it, Sunday?
Yeah, and it's her proposal, and we've been working very, very well with Senator San Agustin and his committee over the last couple of years. We have a very open dialogue. Sometimes it's animated, but at the end of the day, we're looking at being able to do something that we can present and get the body to pass it, and something that makes sense. So I've enjoyed very much working with Senator San Agustin and Steve Guerrero.
Have you enjoyed it, Senator, working with Lester?
Of course, Chris. I've enjoyed working with Lester. But the only budget I'm really more concerned about right now is DOE. They've already passed their budget, 373, right? The ironic thing is that they got 40 million. I'm curious to know exactly what happened in 2020. And in this same fiscal year, they're supposed to get another 110. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to be sitting with them, and my OFB is going to be sitting with them saying, okay, you're generally going to get, before May or June, you're going to get $150 million basically for 2020. Normally, federal money is not used to supplant. It's used to support, to supplement. And with that, we need to take a look at, okay, where did they fund it? I know it's going to be the sanitization, and all that other stuff, but that's not $150 million worth. and what are they going to fix? Are they going to get Simon Sanchez up so they can get the schools fixed? These are the things that we'll be looking at, and the restrooms fixed. There's a bunch of stuff they can fix that there's no money for. That's all mainly their CIP.
Yeah, but they also have the law that requires them to meet the 14 points of the Adequate Public Education Act, which I'm not even sure they've ever been able to meet, because they've not been.
No, it's been the adequate education. The 14. You're talking about the 14 points, right, Sabrina?
Right, because we had Mary Okada on yesterday talking about how they have the bulk of their budget is the CIPs, operational costs, and ensuring that they meet this mandate of the 14 points of the Adequate Public Education Act.
And so what you're saying, Senator, is you're going to look at
But Sabrina
GDOE,
and
but
Chris, we
Senator,
need to take a look at, when we look at the 14 points, when they say a certified teacher in every classroom, the question we should ask ourselves, and we're going to ask them, is every classroom have a certified teacher today? And if the answer is no, what do you have? And if you have a substitute, you have which is a non-certified, what did it cost and how much money is left from that? Or if you never hired anybody, where's that money at and how is it being adjusted? And that's why we provide them a lump sum budget so they can adjust and fix whatever they can fix so they can get closer to fulfilling the Adequate Education Act.
Mm-hmm.
so you're basically saying, oh, if GDOE is getting $110 million from the feds, then let's go ahead and minus $110 million from their budget.
Pretty close to that, because remember, if you're getting additional 110 federal money, all I'm saying is we need to just take a look at it more.
Yeah. But maybe you should also take a look at other agencies that probably could be cut. Senator Talina Nelson was like luxury HRRA. You're looking at maybe like, hey, we don't really need you guys to be working on revitalizing Hagåtña at this moment because we don't have any tourists coming.
And you're correct, Sabrina. We need to take a look at every agency and see where the luxury's at and just start cutting them.
Yeah, but when we look at that, we need to really cut it, not just be like, okay, we're going to shut down Hagåtña revitalization, but we're just going to move all the staff over to Adelup or whatever. And I mean,
no, and I agree with you, Chris. But see, if there's some sense of consolidation of efforts, then maybe that will slowly trim down the agency, and through attrition, we won't fund the vacancies, and we work from there. And we're going to be working with Lester and the administration on this, and we just figure it out, and we see where we can go from there.
Okay.
All right. I just wanted to ask about that bill in your committee, Senator. This is the one that would bar those who have been convicted from official misconduct from being employed in the government of Guam. Any plans on that getting a public hearing, or?
There's a bill in my committee right now. If there's a bill in my committee, we're just looking for the time to schedule it, the date and time to schedule it.
Okay. So you're not going to get in trouble if you report that out?
No, I mean, what we have to remember, Chris, that every bill I've gotten out, some of my colleagues have said, "Hey, man, let's hold back." No, hold on now. Let's just bring it up. Let's have a public hearing. Let's hear the people of Guam. Let's hear the senator that introduced it. And we move on from there. There shouldn't be any hesitation on hearing a bill. Now it's taking a look at my committee and saying, hey, do you agree with it? Do you want it to come out on the floor? And if there's enough votes on the committee report, it goes out on the floor. I've done that on pretty much a lot of bills. And some of the bills that were delayed is because the author asked that, hold on, I want to do an amendment to it. Okay. And then we move from there. Or it's because of legal, we wait for the Attorney General, or from the, we have the legal take a look at it, and then we move from there.
Yeah.
Getting in trouble is one thing. Doing, let's just do what we need to do.
Okay. There's one bill, if I may, that just recently got referred to you, Senator. It's Bill 40, the business privilege tax refunding bill. And Chris and Sabrina, these are the kind of efforts that, again, when they present themselves, we really need to be able to act swiftly and aggressively to capture the moment. The market conditions allow for a refunding of some of our outstanding BPT bonds. We estimate that we would probably save about $2.5 million this fiscal year and about $17.7 million in next fiscal year. So if the legislature passes the bill, we get the bonds sold, the time frame would occur prior to the budget discussions actually really going into full throttle. But then the legislature would understand that the debt service for the existing bonds was reduced, and therefore you can you can breathe a little easier because you've achieved some debt service savings that you can allocate somewhere else, or be more comfortable that all things being equal, the budget can be $17 million less. So those are the kind of things that we've provided to the legislature, and we're hoping for some quick action on that one, and it'll just make the budget formulation for 2022 a little bit easier.
Okay, well, we'll take a look at that one, Lester. Primo, that my staff was just showing me that that's 40-36. That's the one with the bonds, right?
Yes, sir. That's it.
Okay, we're going to take a look at that one. We're going to look at the dates we got available, and we're going to ask that we get the date and we get a time for that one.
There you go. Rock and roll.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. This informational roundtable meeting concluded.
All right, thank you, Sabrina.
All right.
And Chris, you all have a nice day.
You too.
Lester, thank you. Appreciate
Thanks,
your time.
All right, guys. Take care.
Okay, that's the. Okay.
That's a lot of information.
I don't even know what to say. It's just like you mentioned any type of cuts or savings measures, and you get your head bit off.
Nah.
So it is what it is, guys. It appears that Senator Joseph Augustine and Lester Carlson are working very closely. Some might say too closely together. So just be optimistic. That was kind of the takeaway, right? That we're going to get a lot of federal money in here. Because Democrat, we got President Biden, and they seem to be thinking that we're going to get hundreds of millions of federal dollars that are going to be able to be used to kind of shore up some of our shortfalls, which I don't know, it depends on who you ask. Yesterday it was 30 million, today it's 11 million. All right. I'm pretty sure Nestor will have a great time sorting through all that information. It's 9:10. Bree will